Author is funded by the Pacific Northwest Writers Association, supporting writers from pen to publication since 1955. To learn more about the PNWA and their yearly conference, please go to pnwa.org.
Hi, this is Jeff Ferris for Author Magazine, and today I'm here at the Pacific Northwest Writers Conference with author Jerry Swallow. Hi, Jerry.
Hi, Jeff.
You started your career basically as a stand-up comic.
I did, yes.
Talk a bit about that and then how that sort of went into writing.
Yeah, well, you know, I always wanted to be a comic. That was I think from the time I was maybe in second grade and was at home sick with the mumps and lying on the couch, and back in the day, as I call it, they used to have these daytime shows like Merv Griffin and Mike Douglas, and they would have comics on those shows. So that was my first exposure to stand-up comedy when I was like 8 years old. Saw these guys coming out, people laughing at them, and then I found out somehow that these guys actually got paid to do that, and I thought that's what I want to do. So I didn't do that for a long time because I was scared to death to actually get up on stage. So I went to college and got a degree and all that stuff, and then finally decided I hated the idea of getting a job more than I hated the idea of getting up in front of people. So started stand-up here in Seattle during the big stand-up boom. And there were I think 3 full-time clubs back then and a couple weekend clubs, and it was going crazy. This is like the late 80s. And then did that for 10 or 12 years, and I just wanted to get on the Tonight Show, and so I did that several times. And then I thought, I've done that now. I've traveled enough, tired of going back to the same places. How do I get out of that? So just decided to write a movie and see if I could sell it. So that's the...
Well, so yeah, of course, being a stand-up comic, the first thing I would think of is, I'm going to write a movie. What was the first screenplay you did?
The first screenplay I wrote with another comic friend of mine, Peter Galke. It was called Say It Isn't So. And it was the best experience ever up until the point where we sold it. And then it was an awful experience after that because it introduced me to how movie making, how it all works or doesn't work in this case. Because we had this script we wrote. It was like a dream come true for a while because we wrote this script, and it was one of those things where it was the talk of the town and a bidding war and all this stuff, and we sold it for a lot of money, and it changed our lives. And then they made the movie. And then, we saw how things can go terribly wrong very quickly in Hollywood. So
talk about doing the Ice Age Meltdown movie. And how did you get that gig? I'm sure you couldn't just freelance that.
No, that was an interesting. We sold our first script, Say It Isn't So. It all kind of snowballs off of that one script for a while because we sold that. The Farrelly brothers, at the height of their success, There's Something About Mary had just come out, and they formed a production company, and so they wanted to produce this script. So they were the high bidders, Fox, for them on Say It Isn't So. And then they gave us this book to adapt, and it was called Frisco Pigeon Mambo. And it was about 3 pigeons in a testing laboratory who break out or somehow find themselves out. I never read the book because they said, adapt this book, but don't read it. Here's the story. So I never read the book, and the movie turned into something called, I should say the script turned into something called Party Animals, which was supposed to be, I'm getting to your answer about Ice Age, trust me. It was supposed to be, they wanted to do a hard R-rated CG animated movie, which is, who's going to go see that? Who's going to pay to make that? But, that's what they wanted to do. So we wrote this thing, and the one of the executives on the project was Chris Meledandri, who was also the Ice Age guy, right? So he said, "Hey, do you guys want to come in and pitch on?" He loved the script. It was too dirty for no one will ever see the movie. It'll never get made. And I said, for some reason, he thought maybe these guys can write something that's not so filthy. I don't know. Let's find out. So do you guys want to come in and pitch on the sequel, because it was a huge runaway hit and they needed, you know, something quickly. So yeah, we went in there and pitched our idea, and they said, yeah, okay. So that's pretty much how that happened. So I told you I'd get to it eventually. So.
Well, and the screenplays you wrote were with someone else, as you mentioned, Peter.
Yes.
Talk a bit about collaboration, because you're essentially working with another mind.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think our method of collaborating was probably different than anyone in the history of collaboration, because we don't live in the same country. So we would get together once in a while, but we would do a lot of work on outlining, like really extensive outlining, which I hate to do. But when you're working with somebody and they're in a different, you know, in a different country, you know, we would draw up a really meticulous outline, and then we would divide up the movie, and I would write the first half and he would write the second half, and then we would flip it, and he would go punch up my half and I would go punch up and, you know, clean up his half, and then we would put it all together, and it would still be a big mess, and then we would go over it kind of, you know, scene by scene to make sure that it all kind of fit.
So of course, success as a stand-up comic, successful screenplays produced. Next thing, of course, I'm thinking, I got to write middle grade fiction.
That's right. Yeah, I guess so. Well, that was a product of. I mean, there's a lot of futility in screenwriting, where I've got screenplays at every studio in town just sitting there that may or may not be movies someday. Because if you sell a manuscript, there's a 100% chance it'll be a book. No one's going to put it in development as they do in Hollywood. But you know, scripts are, you can sell a screenplay for $1 million, and your family will all be going, "Hey, when's that movie coming out that you sold?" And maybe never. So I thought, I want to write something that actually, I want to see my work actually come to fruition, you know. So yeah, I thought, I'm going to write a book and something I'm going to have fun doing. So I kind of chose a genre in which I could have a lot of fun, do a lot of comedy, you know, a little bit silly, and it's been a lot of fun, much more fun than writing movies.
Talk a bit about Cuthbert Soup, your alter ego, who created this trilogy of books, a whole nother story.
You know, when I originally wrote it, he didn't really exist. I just wrote it as myself. But as I was writing it, I kind of realized that I'm not that guy, and he became kind of his own character, and he becomes a character in the third book. He enters the book, and so I thought I have to give this guy his own identity, and so I gave him a name and a history and a job, and then added these bits of unsolicited advice, because he is the president and vice president of the National Center for Unsolicited Advice, and so yeah, it just kind of took off, and then there was no going back. So.
My last question for you is, if writing has taught you anything, what has it taught you?
What has it taught me? Well, I don't know if maybe I can flip that around. I don't like what I've learned from about writing. Sure. is like, if you really want it to be your profession, you have to find a way to like it, and you have to find a way to embrace it, and be willing to treat it like a job. And so. Initially, I think my introduction to writing was write a screenplay or half a screenplay, because I had a writing partner who wrote the other half, and boom, everybody wants it and buys it, and then the hard reality sets in that this is just the beginning, you know, and you've got to get in there and write, you know, 1,000 things, you know, and make it your life's work, you know. So. I get up at 5 every morning and start my workday because it's my job, and I think there was a time, you know, early on when I thought, this is fun, just, you know, and took me a while to actually focus in on, this is a long-term commitment, and it's going to be a lot of work, but hopefully, you know, I try to have fun doing it as well. So.